大家好，我是大莎，今天我们来聊聊我最喜欢的学中文的应用。That's right, in today's video, we are going to be talking about my personal favorite apps for learning Chinese for beginners. These are the apps that I used the most when I was studying for HSK Yi, Art and San. And I know that a lot of my subscribers are kind of more beginner in Chinese like I am, so I just thought that you guys might find this useful. I want to preface this video by emphasizing the fact that this is not sponsored. None of the apps have paid me to talk about them in any way, and also a lot of them you can use for free. Of course, you might need a subscription to access some premium features, but I've personally used the free version for the majority of these apps. So yeah, if you find this video useful, then please don't forget to like and subscribe, and also turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video from me. Let's just get right into it. So the first app that I want to talk about today is one that I genuinely use all the time, and that is Pleco. Pleco is a Chinese dictionary app, and you can search up any word in English, Chinese, or even Pinyin, which is really useful if you don't know what the character looks like, but you know what it sounds like. It gives you loads of different meanings and uses of, a single character, a single word, and then it also gives you loads of sentence examples so you can see how the word is used. And there is also a stroke order feature where you can see what the stroke order of that character is. It's completely free, to my knowledge anyway, but the one thing I will say is that I don't think there's a website version available, which is a shame because I wish there was. I literally use it every day. If you guys have a good Chinese dictionary website recommendation, then please leave it down below. But as far as Chinese dictionary apps go, Pleco is 100% my favorite. The one thing I will say though is be careful when you type in a word in English, because it often comes up with many different options, but they don't necessarily fit into the context that you need. I feel like that's quite confusing, like what I just said. So let me give you an example. When I was studying in Korea, I went to the Starfield Library and I wanted to make a post in Chinese about my experience there. So I searched up the word famous in English and I found Ming and I used it, but then my friends commented, they were like, oh no, you need to use Yoming, like if you're talking about a famous place, not just Ming. So yeah, just be careful that the word you pick out actually belongs in that context as well. The second app that I really recommend is Do Chinese, which is basically an app where you just read loads of stories in Chinese. Now, you might be thinking, how is reading stories in Chinese in any way suitable for beginners? Do not underestimate yourself, okay? What I really like about Do Chinese is that they make it really easy, even for beginners, to kind of get into the practice of reading Chinese, because their lowest level of stories is called elementary, and that is actually suitable for HSK 1 learners. You can turn pinyin on and off, you can highlight HSK specific words, you can even get it to read out the story for you to practice your listening skills, or maybe even your speaking skills if you want to shadow it. Honestly, I use Do Chinese so much, especially in preparation for my HSK 1 exam, and I do attribute that to why I scored 100% in that exam. I also really like that it introduces you to new words whilst also really building on the foundation that you already have. The way that I personally use it, I have actually talked about this in previous videos, but in case you're new here, I basically just take a screenshot of, the story, I import it into GoodNotes, and then I just go through and translate every single sentence. If there's a word or something that I really don't know, then I will go back and just translate it on the app, which is another cool feature actually. But I really try and use the context to figure out what the word might be, which is such a useful skill to have in language learning. And then once I've done that, I'll go and highlight any words or phrases that I think are interesting or that I've never seen before, and then I'll handwrite it into my notebook. That's just the way that I personally use it, but for me anyway, it's been very effective, so give it a try if you want. Now, one thing I will say about Do Chinese is that although they do give you a lot of free chapters, it's not necessarily free chapters in a single story, if that makes sense. So they might give you chapters 1 and 2 for free, but then chapters 3, 4, and 5 you have to pay for, which is a bit annoying because if you don't want to pay for the subscription, then you kind of just have to abandon stories midway, which I mean, I don't care that much, but some people might be annoyed by that. The third app that I'm going to talk about is Super Test, which is an app specifically designed to help you prepare for the HSK exams. Obviously, I appreciate that not every single person learning Chinese wants to take the HSK exam. That's completely fine. But as someone who has taken the HSK 1 and HSK 2 exam and is going to take the HSK 3 exam in March, Super Test has been so helpful, in preparation for that. Honestly, it has a lot of features. It's vocabulary learning, reading practice, listening practice, there's even speaking practice. But the feature that I personally use the most is the mock test and practice test feature. One thing that I hate about traditional mock tests, where you have a physical practice paper and then you have to play the audio yourself, and it's as if you're taking the real exam. I just hate how slow the audio is. You know, they're like, HSK2 reading section, part 1, section 1. And it's just so freaking slow. I hate that. And what I love about super tests is that the audios are shortened. So you just listen to what you have to hear. There's none of the introductory kind of audio bits, which is what takes up the most time. Now, I will say that for these mock tests, you only get free mock tests and then free practice tests, which isn't that many, but to be honest, like, it was sufficient for me for HSK 1 and 2. I just kind of spaced them out a little bit so I didn't do them all in one day. However, that being said, after I did HSK 2, I did actually go out and buy a lifetime membership for super tests because it's been so helpful for me. They've also added like HSK 7, 8, and 9, which if you don't know is like the new HSK levels. But I just want to emphasize that I did use the free version for HSK 1 and 2 and that was fine. Now, the next app that I want to talk about is Quizlet. What I love about Quizlet is that I can use it on my computer, my iPad, my phone. It's very portable. I'm not someone that likes traditional, you know, paper flashcards because I feel like I can't take them around with me. Whereas obviously on an app like Quizlet, it's just on my phone. In my last Chinese video, I talked about one of the key ways of maintaining a language even when you're super busy, you know, you feel like you have no time, is to utilize spare moments like throughout the day. And using an app like Quizlet is great because if you're waiting for coffee or you're waiting for the bus or something, you can just get out your phone and just start learning some vocabulary. It doesn't necessarily even have to be Quizlet. I know that a lot of my mutuals that study Chinese as well actually use Anki. However, I didn't like Anki. Basically, I exclusively used Quizlet like all through high school, through GCSE Spanish, through A-level Spanish. But then I decided to give Anki a go when I started learning Chinese because so many of my friends used Anki. However, I just really didn't like how their approach, at least in my experience, was basically memorizing and kind of getting into your head a group of words at a time. So we'd focus on like 10 words for ages and ages and ages before kind of throwing in new words. And for me, that just took up too much time. Like, the way that I personally like to use flashcards is to just go through all of them and then kind of just highlight the words that I struggle with. And then after I've done a whole deck, I'll go and solely focus on the words that I've struggled with and kind of put more attention on them. Whereas Anki, I feel like, had a slightly different approach and it wasn't really compatible with my personal way of learning. The main kind of point that I want to make is, you know, just any flashcard app will do. I've just personally had a lot of success with learning vocab, you know, with flashcards. And if you're a beginner, you've never tried them, then what's the harm in trying it, you know what I mean? Now, my final recommendation is ChatGPT, which of course is a website, but I also have it on my iPad and my phone as an app. People have varying opinions on AI, and obviously the ethics of using AI is quite, you know, questionable, or, you know, sustainability aspect of it. Like, I'm not dismissing that at all. However, when we consider it as a tool for language learning, it is so useful. Again, I talked a little bit more about this in my last Chinese video. However, if you missed that, I'll just summarize it here. Basically, what I use ChatGPT for is for two things. The first one is when I write like a paragraph or a sentence in Chinese, I'll just ask ChatGPT to correct it. And then I'll specify that I want the corrections to be at around HSK 3 level because I noticed that sometimes it would give me quite advanced corrections. And then the second use is to just give me explanations and to improve my understanding of certain concepts that I'm kind of confused with. Like, what I used to do is I would just type my question into Google, but I wouldn't always get the answer. You know, like, obviously there's a lot of like lounge learning websites out there. There's websites like Hi Native, I think it's called, where people ask questions to native speakers and then the native speakers answer. However, I wasn't always finding answers to my questions online, which is when I got the brilliant idea of asking ChatGPT. Now, please take this with a pinch of salt because explanations for things, like especially in Chinese, vary amongst humans, never mind amongst AI, especially when the language is quite at an advanced level. However, in my experience, like, it's fine at a more beginner level because realistically, like, the questions that you might have at a beginner level are probably quite basic in the grand scheme of things. You know, like, for example, I might ask ChatGPT like, oh, like, please explain the difference between bu and mei, or explain how to use the, or explain how to use yo. You know, like, ChatGPT is very useful in that sense where it can give you a very speedy response for any question you might have, and when it's at a beginner level, it's pretty reliable. I'm not going to pretend that it's reliable all the time, but for lower level things like this, it's pretty good. I also like that you can create practice questions with it, like quiz me on HSK1 vocabulary, for example, or, kind of do different exercises like multiple choice questions or fill in the gap exercises. You can also practice your speaking with ChatGPT, which is quite cool. If you guys want me to go into more detail, like in an actual video about using AI for language learning, then just let me know, because there's so many different uses for it. Like, I'm not going to go into detail in this video. But yeah, those are just 5 of my personal app recommendations for learning Chinese, especially at a beginner level, just purely based on my own personal experience this past year. If you guys found it useful, then please leave a like and subscribe. And if you have any of your own recommendations for apps that I've not mentioned in this video, then please feel free to leave them down below. Let's help each other out. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.